So today I'm going to walk you through the steps of setting up your unit project paper as well as the notes page that you're going to use to take down your ideas. This is a multi-day process. We're not going to get it all done in one step or one day even. This is going to take us the whole unit. So rule number one, when you're working at home, that I want you to keep in mind is to use what you have. When you're practicing things, when you're working on new skills, it's really important to use what you have with very few exceptions, and those are listed on your syllabus that you got last week. One of which is your pad of canvas paper. We're going to use one of those sheets per unit project, so we've got one of those for today. Oh, and here's rule number two. Be kind to yourself. When you're working at home and you don't have friends and teachers and peers to give you encouragement and support, it's really important that you be kind to yourself and forgiving of your own mistakes. And you understand that this is all about a process. This isn't about being perfect. So we're going to use one of our pages from our Canvas pad, and you're going to take notes and ideas in either your blank sketchbook, which is the other exception, the one that I had you purchase at the beginning of the semester, in a sketchbook, whatever size that is, even if it's a big one. So this gives us an idea of what our notes page is going to look like. We're going to be making a 3x3 grid for the 7 elements of art, as well as a title and your name and your information. So this could be the way that you take notes. If you choose not to use a spiral bound notebook and you choose to use blank printer paper instead for your notes and your practice, that's okay too. You use what you have. So this is my board. This is what I have. I've clipped up my canvas paper to get started. If you've got clips, that's great. If you want binder clips, if you need to use tape, that's okay too. I've got my notes page here, and on this page we're going to use a little bit more care and effort to make sure that that square stays nice and neat. If you happen to have a nice big ruler that can help you make squares, that's great. If you have a big old right angle ruler in your garage, that's cool too. But if you don't, no worries. And to prove it, I'm going to use my little Rink-a-Dink dollar store ruler today. And the way that I'm going to make sure that I have the care and the effort that I need is I'm going to take my time to draw with a pencil first, and then when it's right, I'm going to go over it with an alcohol-based marker or a permanent marker. So a good old Sharpie is great. You're not going to want to use Crayola. Other times you can use Crayola. This isn't a good opportunity, and it wants to be a nice thick marker as opposed to a nice little thin marker. So the tip that I want you to keep in mind, if you need to make a nice square on this paper but you don't have a square right angle like the ruler we just saw, is to use the edges of the paper to your advantage. So I'm going to start here and make a line. And then I'm going to make a line here, and then at the top, and then at the bottom. And once I've done that in pencil, then I'll go over it with my marker. So remember, friends, draw it light until it's right. Say you do mess up. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Remember, process is better than perfection. We're looking for showing the process, not being perfect. And also, take a minute to plan ahead. If you do plan ahead, it's gonna go a lot better for you. So when we come back, we're gonna see what my paper looks like once I've got my square, and then we're gonna talk about what we're gonna put in the first square.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about our unit project. Once you've used your ruler to make your lines on your project paper, and then gone over those lines with your marker, you should have a grid that looks a little bit like this. It's going to be 9-inch squares. Each of these squares is going to be 3 inches by 3 inches. You can always check it up against a Post-it note to make sure it's about the right size. Then we're going to talk about what it's going to eventually look like. We're going to be representing all 7 elements of art. We've got line, shape, form, color, texture, value, and space. It's a lot to handle right now. Right now, we're just going to focus on line. So we're going to think back to the videos that we've watched and the discussions we've had in class. We're going to do a quick little run through. We're going to remember that line is a path of a moving point. It's the most basic and fundamental of the elements of art. and it makes up a lot of the other elements of art as well. There's an endless number of different lines you can draw in the world, but they can all be boiled down to two types: straight lines and curved lines. Everything else is some combination of the two. We can categorize lines in a few different ways. First up, we have solid or continuous lines. And then we have broken or interrupted lines. Footprints, tire tracks, lines of birds, those all fall into this category. While you're at it, write those words down. We also have implied lines. These are lines that we assume they're not actually there, but we know they're there. The horizon line is a good example. Lastly, we have psychological lines. These lines aren't actually there, we can't see them, but our brains make these lines based on other subjects, sometimes in subtle ways and sometimes in not so subtle ways. We're going to think back to our homework from last night, the Design Dojo video, about how lines can convey emotion. Lines can emote based on the draws analogy or anagram. That's direction, rhythm, angularity, weight or width, and the line's style. And the way you choose to vary each of these elements is going to be up to you. For your unit project in that little 3-inch square, experiment with line and try to use just line. Choose one dark color, blue or black, anything that can ultimately look mostly black, and use those markers and tools to make some straight lines, some curved lines, some solid lines, and some broken lines. See if you can get some implied or psychological lines in there. And remember to use your line to convey emotion by varying up that draws anagram. Now this part of our project is going to be the create portion of the 4 artistic processes, which, if you'll recall, are creating, presenting the work to others, responding to other people's work and to your own work, and then connecting ideas between artworks. Right now we're focusing on create. We've got 4 steps to create: imagine, execute, reflect, and refine. For right now, we're just going to imagine and execute. And what does that look like? That means brainstorming. That means putting some ideas out on paper before you do your actual project. Feel safe and free to mess up. It's part of the process. Whatever you do, just put something on paper, put it down, walk away, and come back a half an hour later. When it comes time to execute, be kind to yourself. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Use what you have on hand and draw it light until it's right. A pencil and eraser are going to be your best friend here. We're not looking for perfection. I'm looking for you to show the process, your thinking, the steps, showing the standards or learning objectives, as well as your progress, the effort you put in, the care you put in, the improvement that you show over the course of the semester. Those are things that require zero artistic talent. And guess what? It's our first unit project, so you don't even have to show improvement at this point. You get to improve from here.